I do see AI as the great equalizer between smaller and larger businesses, because so many things that would have cost you too much money before, only the big players could do that. But now you can do that because maybe an AI agent can do that very quickly and better for you and free up a lot of resources for you to get bigger and to serve more clients or customers or make more of your product, whatever it might be. So don't think that AI is just out there for these huge, gigantic corporations that you can't compete with. Those are the tools that are going to help you compete and nip at the heels of these larger players who had so much advantage over you for so many years.
Welcome, Jennifer, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Cesar. I'm thrilled to be here.
To start the conversation, I would like to start asking if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the work that you are doing at the moment.
Sure. So I am an executive coach. Overwhelmingly, our clients are leaders in technology, or today also leaders in business who are leading change that winds up being enabled or driven by technology, and not just AI. Technology-driven changes, and how an awful lot of that in the past used to be driven by the market. There was a change in the market, and that drove a ton of change inside an organization to be able to rise to that need. Today, we see much more change that's driven by technology, and a heck of a lot of people who need to lead in very complex environments. And so you're talking about multiple changes, multiple transformations. I just saw a rather concerning study, a survey of business leaders indicating that on average, they plan to introduce 3 to 4 significant transformation level changes into their organizations in the coming year. Well, that should be interesting to watch from the cheap seats, because really we pretty much found people can handle about 2 in a year, and that's double that. So again, we'll watch from the cheap seats and see how that goes. If you're in one of those organizations, I'm going to bring you as leaders some tips today that you can do with your own sphere of influence and with your own teams to do the best you can through that and actually make your team as successful as they can be under those circumstances. But you did say a little bit about the business. I got into this specialty in executive coaching where we work so much with leaders who are leading change and multiple change and lots of transformation, not because I wanted to, but because what I wanted to do, nobody wanted to hire me to do. Isn't that a hoot? And how many people listening can relate to that? You wind up doing something that wasn't what you thought you would do. And then in the end, you look back on it and you go, well, I'm so glad it didn't work out that I got that thing I wanted in the first place, because I would have actually found it, in my case, I would have found it pretty repetitious. What I really wanted to do was come in to be part of a coaching cadre as part of, those huge, global company HR programs, basically, where they're providing coaching or workshops or training internally. But nobody from HR was ever all that interested in me. And who kept calling my business were those people who needed to lead really complex situations. Like, wow, there was a company that was integrated, we acquired it a year ago. The 2 leadership teams have never gelled. Now I'm taking over and we're a year in, and we had to scrap our last product entirely because the leadership team was at such war about the strategic direction that we actually missed the market opportunity, and now the product is outdated. So it was those types of situations where I'm going, oh, wow, everything about this is ugly. There's massive conflict, which I hated at the time. Hated. So a massive conflict between really powerful, like rooms full of alphas, enormous organizations that were 100% dispirited because they just spent the last year and a half working on something that went in the trash bin. And they worked long hours to make that happen for nothing. And I was going, and why are they calling me? What do I know? Well, as it turned out, nobody really knew how to solve these problems. And so we were having to figure it out as we went. And so I am today eternally grateful for the fact that I so completely failed to effectively market myself as a candidate for any of these HR departments, because I turned out doing something that for me has been super exciting, that we've had to figure out as we go, and that we're still learning. Even today, we're learning more.
Just for you and all the people listening, realize the value that you provide in this first couple of minutes of our conversation. Oh, I already have a
I'm
ton
delighted.
of questions for you
I'm
regarding
delighted.
agency, career planning,
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, a lot of things. But for now, I would like to ask you first, when you start telling this story, and you start telling about these leaders that they are maybe challenged by the technology, or they are trying to get up with the technology instead of going with the market. Do you think this is something that it's becoming like a trend? It's
Yes.
happening more often, or is
Yes.
just this
Yes.
moment with AI, or
I have seen this trend emerge over about, I would say about 8 years. It has certainly accelerated in the more recent, maybe 2 years. I mean, the LLMs definitely shook things up in terms of kind of AI in particular becoming understood in a widespread way. But as far as, fundamentally needing to lead change that often has a significant technology component, that shift has started to be underway for quite a bit longer, at least in our clients. They do span the globe. I'll admit we're a little more North American centric in that many of our clients, regardless of how distributed or global the company is, the company itself would be headquartered here or in Canada. So I guess we have a little bit of a bias in that regard. But these are not local phenomena. The technology is global and globally applicable, and it shakes things up at a global level. And it very much shakes things up in terms of your workforce that you're seeking to lead. And it shakes things up a lot in terms of how you influence your peers as a leader. And we spend an extraordinary amount of time on how do you influence your peers? How do you get your peers on board with significant changes and transformations that either you want to make, or if you're not in the E-suite, that your boss told you you're going to be responsible for. That happens a lot.
yeah,
That
yeah, yeah,
happens a
yeah.
lot. Yeah.
And just trying to remember my experience working in the US and with companies in Europe, and how it's here in the Baltics and Scandinavia. I think we run at different speeds, because
Yes.
exactly like you said, my experience, at least with the Americans, is very much trying to be the first, or catch the trends, or have the toy before my competitor or something. And here in Northern Europe is very not of course it's a generalization, but is
Yeah.
much like we are going to watch how it plays in the US,
Yes.
and then we will decide if we adopt it or what we do.
Yes. 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 So it may be that some of this will come a little bit later for many of the people listening today.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah,
You can
yeah.
be out ahead of it this way.
And I think
Yeah.
this is precisely one of the objectives of the podcast, that we can
Yeah.
talk with people in different places and try to learn, and try to
Yeah.
stay ahead in the game,
Yeah.
to learn about the good and the bad one. No,
Yes.
in
Yes.
Latin America is the same. No, it's trying to
Yeah.
catch up with what is doing the US, and but some of the time the rush for
Yes.
coping, for being there or
Yeah.
being the first, it's maybe not the best companion to make changes and implement things. Not,
Yes.
don't you think?
Yes, I think it certainly carries some challenges with it. And interestingly, I would say many of my clients today were not necessarily looking to be first, but what they found was something was changing around them. So perhaps their competitors were getting there before they were. It was getting to be more threatening to their business. I think another significant change coming down the line that no one's going to be able to wait for is that AI, well applied, is the great equalizer for small businesses. So a lot of small businesses that could not really compete against larger ones are going to be in a much better position to compete against larger businesses and to get larger themselves. And so, like many of my clients, I would say to your listeners, you don't usually get to pick going first. Only one goes first, and everybody else is going, crap. Oh, they're out ahead. We now have a problem, right? Like we're losing market share to them, or we're struggling with getting the funding that we need because now our numbers don't look so good because they got out ahead of us and they operationalized better. And so that's just kind of the reality of business, of being a leader in a business, that most of the change comes to you. It's not necessarily something that you yourself chose.
Mhm.
There aren't that many people out there, frankly, who are true visionaries, who just think of it way ahead of everyone else and, build a company and drive it to get there first. There aren't very, very many of those. That's a tiny percentage. And so I would say, even I'm in the Silicon Valley, which is the most aggressive business environment in the world, I would suggest. But, even here, it's not as if every company is trying to get there first. The business environment is too complex for the lion's share of businesses to be first. And so there's many more that are going, what's the need? What's the demand? What is it that people want? What is it that business people want? Whoever it is that we are responsible to serve, and how else are they getting those needs met? And so that's really what drives an awful lot of it. And regardless of that sort of bigger picture strategic question, if you're listening to this podcast, probably there are people in the mix, you personally, and if you're in a leadership role, the people who are on your team, at the very least, are in the mix. And those fundamental human needs around change, those do not change very much. That the human brain doesn't change as fast as, say, technology. And
Mhm.
so the need in terms of what you need to do as a leader and those things that are particularly helpful, that's going to be the same regardless of where you're located, certainly within a cultural context. But there are some. Would you like to hear a couple of those fundamentals that I think are
Yes,
non-negotiable?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of them that I think doesn't get a lot of airtime and really should is that I find the leaders that do the best job with helping people be ready for the future and be resilient with the changes that they're going through now, those leaders work very hard on their own self-awareness, which sounds so silly on the surface. Like, what difference would that make? It makes an enormous difference. So what I mean by this is everyone needs in their leaders two things which seem diametrically opposed. But hey, no one ever said leadership was an easy gig. So the first one is they need you to be consistent and predictable as a person, right? They don't need a different personality on Tuesday than they got on Monday. They don't need you to be a stickler for details here, but, loosey-goosey over there. So leaders who can be personally very consistent make an enormous difference for people as you're leading them into the future, right? As you're leading them through the significant changes that will take you into the future. And so you need to be really clear on what about me is unchanging, right? It just is unchanging to the extent where if it's not the right fit, I just have to go somewhere else because it's just me fundamentally. At the same time, everybody listening today, I am sure, has worked for a leader who had that attitude that was like, hey, this is just me, everybody, get used to it. Gag, because that's the diametrically opposed need that people have is for you to take in feedback and suggestions, whether direct or indirect, and to change and adapt and grow as a leader to meet the needs of the business and the team. So by way of example, if you're getting signals that you don't speak up enough and nobody knows where you stand on things, you have to act on that. You can't just, unless you have decided, no, this is me. I am the silent leader. I wish to be silent at all times. I just have to find an employer who wants that. At that point, you have to go, hey, I think in this regard, I need to change. Like I can still fundamentally be someone who thinks before they speak, but it's really causing problems for people that they don't know where I stand until we're so far down the discussion. And so, yeah. And so you see how your leadership is filled with managing these competing tensions between the need to be someone who is consistent and predictable in who you are and someone who is open to feedback and growth and change. It's an inherent dichotomy, but the leaders who take people into the future are very thoughtful about managing this, and they see it as a journey that never ends. There is no point at which they're like, yep, I've struck the perfect balance. It's a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
journey. It's a lifetime journey in their minds. They never see themselves as having arrived. You hit milestones in your own growth, but You never see it as, okay, I'm done. I don't need to grow as a leader anymore.
Hi, this episode is brought to you by Sala. Building for the future shouldn't feel overwhelming. Sala is an all-in-one solution designed to support you at every stage. From shaping an idea to AI-powered customer service. But Sala don't just focus on technology. They help you make sense of it and actually use it in a way that works for you. If you're looking to grow, adapt, or future-proof your business, check out Sala.
We spent a good chunk of time. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to tell that now that you are telling all this, and I reflect on my own experience and things I have learned from other guests, I have come to the realization that a lot of the things that probably modern leadership is taking or is shaping form, it's very similar to how very high tactical efficient military team operates. Because I was in the military, I was in the Navy, and it's a very similar leadership mentality as you were mentioning, because from one side, you have a responsibility and a way to conduct as a larger organization or as the representative of a larger organization. But at the same time, you have this other commitment in the other way, in the other direction with your team, with your people. And the best leader you can be is if you foster the leadership skills on your team, so they can act when you are not around. So they can they can make decisions that are in the tactical level when you are doing something else or you are attending something else, and you can trust them that what they are going to do, and they can trust you in that you have their back and what are you going to do. So it's a very similar, I think, situation like you are mentioning. And this is something that it was almost a cultural shock for me when I left the military and started working in corporate, that it wasn't the case working in corporate so much, that if you start presenting leadership skills in the office, that wouldn't be so nice seen by the management, no? You are a troublemaker instead of an asset.
Right.
No?
Yeah. And isn't that such a narrow viewpoint and not especially helpful? And I just want to echo, there's this stereotype that the military leadership is all command and control, and nothing could be further from the truth. And so it is far more complex than that and far more advanced than I think a lot of people who don't ever engage with the military realize. But what you said also made me think of something that is very important, and it is the distinction between change management and change leadership. If you want to lead people into the future, you must do both well. So when I think of change management, that is ensuring that this change is as well organized as it can reasonably be, that people know the standard they're going to need to perform to, that you've got them trained so that they can perform to that standard, that you have a roadmap, that you have deadlines, that you have milestones. And so these are the fundamentals of change management. And I do think change management has gotten a lot better over the years in many companies, although loads of people argue with me on that. They're like, no, we suck at that. How can you say, no, you're better than you were, at least give me that, right? That's come a long way. And I think to some extent, perhaps that's come a long way because so many business leaders are more comfortable in that objective space of efficiency. Well, if managing the change better gives us better efficiency, that's a comfortable thing for me to talk about. That's a comfortable problem for me to solve. They're less comfortable in the subjective side, which is change leadership. And we no longer really do any advisory work in change management because I think it's come a long way. And I think it's going to continue to come a long way and get better and better. We spend a lot of our time in change leadership. That's keeping people hopeful, right? Keeping them productive, even as they're struggling with what on earth the vision of the future is, right? Dealing with colossal amounts of conflict, both direct and indirect, that comes when change happens. Right? There's a lot of conflict that happens in that. Being able to deal well with that, being able to resolve that successfully, move people forward together. It's that whole human element. And it's where we spend a lot of our time with leaders. As I mentioned before, it all starts with you, right? How
Yeah.
closely have you as a leader examined your own relationship with change, your
You know,
own relationship with it?
I would like to ask you something because this I is something that I had always struggled with this concept. Once I left the military, start working outside, and is the concept itself of not leadership, but the use of the word leader for an organization or a team,
Yeah.
because at some point a lot of people that are in decision making places, and they start seeing themselves as the General MacArthur or Eisenhower, instead of seeing themselves as good administrators or good bosses. And that's had been always a little bit conflicting to me,
Yes.
that
Yes.
the word may take a lot of is kind of heavy, and some
Yeah.
people are using it maybe in a different way that it meant to be. And
Yeah.
but I don't know how it's in your experience, because not everyone can be leaders, and but everyone, I think, should have this skill to take the lead in when it's
Yes.
necessary, or
Yes,
how do you think?
yes, yeah, yes. Even, many years ago, we had a single large change to implement in an organization, and it was a new ERP system, which changed everything across multiple silos. And one of the things that we put in place was a team called the Change Leads, and it included people who were frontline managers up through about, I think we had a couple directors, but it also included a number of people who I said, give us the people who everyone turns to and says, what do you think? Because if you're on board, I'm on board, right?
Yeah.
And those are people that we called them change leads, because they weren't in management responsibilities. Interestingly, to a person, those people said, don't you ever make me a manager or I'm quitting. They wanted nothing to do with it, right? And they had such credibility with their peers that if they got on board, others would get on board. And so we actually made it a part of their job responsibilities. It was approximately 10 of their time was dedicated to being a change leader. And my team and I skilled them up in how to lead people through conflict successfully, the stages of change and how to lead them through change, their own relationship with change, different personalities, and how you can work with people of different personalities to help them go through change. We established a whole feedback loop that went back up the organization through them to ensure that there was actual dialogue going on and not just a lot of yakety yak messaging coming down. And I was quite satisfied recently to come across a large study that went across a number of companies that essentially said these companies were, they'd come up with a brilliant idea to do this thing, and this was like 2 years ago. And I went, oh, yes, we were ahead of our time, I guess, because it made an enormous difference. And so, understanding who are those people who are leaders who aren't in your management chain, but people really look up to them. And that makes them a leader, right? I also say when you are in an actual leadership role, it is vital that you do the hard work of coming up with the vision for the future. You can't lead people into a future that's completely nebulous. You need something that they're going toward that is inspiring for them. And so that's going to get people a lot further through the tough times than, trying so hard to be General MacArthur.
Yeah.
General MacArthur is an exhausting role to play for everybody, including you as a leader. And so, I always say you can fall back on that when you need to, if you really need to shove this thing through and it can't wait. But on the whole, don't make that your starting point. It's not a great place to start from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife works, she's an historian, and she works with Dainis Ivans, who is one of the people that achieved the independence of Latvia from Soviet Union in the 1990s.
Wow.
And
Wow.
he is a figure here, no? It's, of course. And one of the things that he's always asked is about being the first, being the leader of this movement. What is the most important? And one of the things that he say, and now I'm coming back to everything that we have discussed. It's you have to have certain mentality to be the first in doing something. That's a given.
Totally.
But the most important is that there is someone that is willing to be the one behind you,
Yes.
giving to
Yes.
you give the first step. There should be someone willing to give the second step. behind you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, nothing. It's happening.
Yeah. That
And I
is
think this
great.
is like you were saying, just not you have to have this vision of the future. You have to have
That is great.
some skills, understanding, some
Yeah.
mystic around what you want to do to motivate
Yes.
others to follow.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. And what seems a little bit like one of those dichotomies to that is we are definitely seeing that the leaders who lead people into the future best cultivate two things that seem so dichotomous. But again, no one said leadership was an easy gig. One is that you can get excited about that vision of the future. That people get excited listening to you because you're so excited about it. At the same time that you personally are a calm person. So not someone who's overly excitable. So you have to really cultivate that calm in yourself because it's rough waters that if you're going into a future that's different from the present, that's rough waters, right? You are essentially telling people, guess what? We're on a ship together. Wave goodbye to the shore. Okay. Well, yeah, we can't see the shore anymore. And all they can see ahead is water. So you see how, they can't see the destination yet. So you have to both get them excited about a destination they can't see yet and be excited about that yourself. At the same time that you can be very personally calm and calming about the journey. It's like, nope, the ship isn't going to sink. We're not going to drown. We're not going to starve. We're not all going to get rickets. We've got some things figured out and the rest we're going to figure out together because you're all super smart. And so, interestingly, another dichotomy that is definitely associated with effective change in terms of bringing people into a future that you envision.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I will like to ask you because we have been talking it's very interesting, at least for me, talk about leadership and all these things. But I think for people that probably listening to us at this moment, that it may sound a little bit abstract to them because this is, and I'm taking from your experience, what is happening in the big rooms of the important people, no? But
Yeah.
to ground the conversation in what may happen for the entrepreneurs, for the small businesses, that they also have to solve problems with their teams, even if they are
Absolutely.
small or if it's even a solopreneur and it's dealing with subcontractors or with their
Yeah.
own clients. Do you have some practical advice for these kind of people that may are don't have all the resources or the teams are in a small number or their
Yeah.
battles
Yeah.
doesn't seem the
Yes.
biggest of the world, but that are important for them?
Absolutely. Nothing about this really changes with a very small business, except that you don't really have to influence such a wide range of stakeholders and peers in order to move a change forward. So I'd say that is about the only thing that you don't really have to think about so much with a very small business. And otherwise, it is largely the same. You still have people who need to be inspired about the future. In small businesses, I do find people can have more of an attachment to you personally and to see you and the company as one and the same. And so all of this kind of gets amped up. If you are like stressed out and nervous and it shows and you're not maintaining calm, it's going to be super contagious to your people in a small business. It'll be contagious in a larger business, but it'll be contained to the people who interact with you the most. And hopefully they can remain calm and keep others steady. But if it's a really small business and you're the founder or the owner, that's all conflated in people's minds. There's no separation between who you are and what the business is and where one ends and one begins. And so it becomes that much more important to do all of these things. I will say a couple of things that seem unrelated, but one is if you are leading a small business, really get out there and research AI tools that are becoming available for businesses like yours. I can't tell you what they are. I'm certainly no expert in those tools, but I do see AI as the great equalizer between smaller and larger businesses because so many things that would have cost you too much money before, only the big players could do that. But now you can do that because maybe an AI agent can, not an LLM, but a specific
Yeah.
AI agent can do that very quickly and better for you and free up a lot of resources for you to get bigger and to serve more clients or customers or make more of your product, whatever it might be. So, don't think that AI is these tools are just out there for these huge, gigantic corporations that you can't compete with. Those are actually the tools that are going to help you compete and really nip at the heels of some of these larger players who had so much advantage over you for so many years. And so be open to that and look for that. A second one, it's a plug. This applies to anyone, but I'm thinking you're particularly asking for those folks who don't have access to a lot of the resources, which is if you go to our website, there are a lot of resources there that anyone can access for free. And it's just selbygroup.com. Very simple. I'm Jennifer Selby Long. You can tell I didn't name my business with a lot of foresight because then I got married and added another last name, but oh well. So selbygroup.com. And I've got about 100 blogs up there. You can just do a search by topic. All the podcasts that we've been on have been there covering a range of topics, some of which aren't in the blog. You can fill out our contact us form there and reach out to me with your questions. I don't charge for that, right? I just don't, right? So please don't hesitate to reach out, fill out that form, and we can book a few minutes to talk about whatever it is that is on your mind. We do mostly work with mid-size and larger companies, but we have also worked with a lot of startups and smaller firms over, the business has been around 28 years now. So we have worked with, I would say, enough very small businesses. And we are a small business that's certainly folks who are from smaller businesses. We could probably answer some questions in 15 minutes, but it applies as well if you're a leader in a large business. Don't hesitate to reach out.
Amazing, Jennifer. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And that's by itself, it's in my opinion, no, it's a proof of leadership. What you are doing, no, you are giving guidance, are giving help to others, even if it's you are not getting anything from it apparently.
Yeah.
But you are getting a lot. I think from it.
Yes.
People
It's
follow.
very satisfying. Yeah.
People follow as I was, I think my first comment, follow the value that you are providing, that you are giving. And
thank you. That's a cool perspective.
it's no, and of course, and it's very nice when the value that you are getting, it's coming from a person like you that feels so honest, so clear, so open, and so intelligent. It's
Thank you.
just delightful to talk with you. And before we close this conversation, because our time is start to running out, I would like to ask you about your opinion in regarding organizations and AI adoption.
Yeah.
Like you were mentioning now how you can use agents to start doing the job, or not. We are not going to tell about the job of people, but start to take some of the workload from the teams, and maybe these give openings to new positions or merging one on each other. But what is your what are your thoughts about this regarding organizations and leadership to have a successful AI adoption as an enterprise?
Yeah. So several thoughts, but probably I'll just try to narrow it down. One is that where I'm seeing AI agents actually be helpful is in the execution layer of a business. And so what do you do with those people who were strictly doing execution? And I think that is a very important strategic consideration. There's some interesting research out now that we're a little further into the LLM era, and we're finding things like this notion that there's widespread layoffs due to AI is not true. The companies that were saying their layoffs were due to AI were not telling the truth in their public statements. There were typical reorganizations. We're getting rid of this division that handles legacy technology and we're investing in one that's AI. Oh, if you want to call that, it's a massive layoff, but it's driven by AI versus our own, lack of foresight, or they're doing some operational tightening up because they've been losing money, but they say it's because of AI. Well, it turns out, investors view that more favorably than saying, yeah, we just took too long to do the operational improvements we needed to do. So I think, fears about kind of these widespread layoffs and every job being done by AI are a little overblown, in that the execution layer is definitely impacted. And so what do you do instead? I've said since LLMs first came out, well, you can tell the bot to do the job, but you can't hold it accountable. Who's the accountable human? And you need humans. There's a huge difference even among coders between who's really just a coder, right? And who is a software engineer, because the software engineers are supervising, guiding, checking the bot. They're still very actively involved. They're making all the judgment calls. You'll need the humans to make the judgment calls. So don't over rotate in terms of thinking, well, I'm just going to eliminate this whole division and save a bunch of money and press a button and the bot's going to do it. I know I'm exaggerating a bit, but that's not going to be very effective for you. The other thing is be cautious about telling your people these broad things that you don't understand, like do everything with AI first, everything. And, AI, sometimes there's an awful lot that AI can't do as efficiently as your people can do it. And so if you're saying lead with AI, you're actually just adding more time to their day because, at a certain point, fairly early on, they're figuring out, well, AI can't do this better than me. But now my boss has told me my pay is partly dependent on demonstrating that I had AI try it first. And so, you need to just roll your sleeves up and learn a lot more about this and don't just leave it to whoever heads technology, but learn about it yourself so that you can have an intelligent discussion with this person, right? So that you can make these business decisions in a smart way, because it might look great from where you sit, but when you get down into the weeds of actually doing it, it turns out it doesn't look so good. And unless an organization and leaders have really worked hard and continue to work hard to get that feedback bubbling up, they're not going to know. And so, you really have to go out of your way to get feedback on how well that directive is going and how it's been interpreted. And do you really understand the technology that you're telling them to use? I would say those are a couple of things that are very current around AI and leading people into the future of AI. Those are the most current thoughts I have.
And so this is, on one hand, it's great for everyone who may listen to us now that they shouldn't worry about the buzzwords or the noise about AI replacing people at the workplace, but also take agency and start learning and educate yourself and try to see what you can do with these tools. And
absolutely.
Sadly,
and I was just going to say, if you're someone who works in the execution layer, start learning what you can do, right? Yeah. Get out ahead of it. Yeah, which I don't think I mentioned. Sorry about that.
No. It's great, because I just wanted to add that sadly it is what you just said also, that people that is doing their job in a certain way and they have been doing it a long time and their boss is just telling them, now we are going to do everything with AI, and is just giving them another layer of work to perform during the day.
Yeah.
Sadly, is something that is happening in education. And but that's another discussion for another day, because this technology is being adopted in everywhere. Yeah. And we just can hope that will be successful adopted for the sake of us, for our children and our future.
Certainly.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you for your time, your thoughts and expertise, and I hope it won't be the last time that we have you here on the show.
It was my great pleasure. I would love to come back.
I really would like to have you again, because I got a lot of questions that I will like to ask you still, but we ran out of time, and I just want to thank you again. And thanks to our couple of listeners. Remember, we learn from each other. I wish you agency and a wonderful day. And remember that the future was yesterday. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and check out another episode here.